Hello, Social Work 590 class. Welcome to week 2. I hope you all had a great first week of the semester, and as much as possible when school's already started, that you're having a good Labor Day weekend. So a couple of notes to get started with. I wanted to answer just questions that you might have. One is just to reiterate, and I mentioned this in the video last week, that either version 11 or 12 of the Grinnell textbook, either one is totally fine. Just if you're using version 11, make sure you go by the chapter names instead of the chapter numbers, because the chapter numbers are different. The other question I got from a few people was about the professional behaviors rubric. So when you go into week 1 of Blackboard, you saw it said sort of a look ahead assignment. At the very end of the semester, we're going to ask you to rate yourself on that list of professional behaviors, and that's really for you to get a sense of what we mean by professionalism in social work, and for you to have a sense to think about how you're doing on those, and if there's any of those you want to work on. So you don't need to submit those to me now, and some of you did, and I'm not going to do anything with them. I'm just going to leave it there, because what you're going to do is at the end of the semester, you're going to submit that and tell me how you think you did on that this semester. The other thing I want to just make sure everybody knows is that you absolutely can retake the quizzes as many times as you want. Really, the point of those quizzes is, number one, to practice test taking, because it can cause anxiety in a lot of people. We hope that many of you will go on to get your social work license, and that involves taking a standardized test. And so this is a good way to practice that. You'll also have a final exam in this class as well that's worth 10% of your grade that is not something you can retake. So this is your chance to practice for both of those things. So when you're working on the quizzes, my recommendation to you is to do them before Sunday, so that if you take it and you don't like your grade, you can go back, review the chapter, and then retake it. The quizzes only cover the material in the text. They're actually taken from the book's bank of questions, so they don't cover any of the additional readings. Okay, those were my reminders. So now let's talk about week 2. So your reading for this week includes Chapter 2 in the Grinnell textbook, which is actually Chapter 2 in either edition, on formulating research questions, and then the first 2 chapters in the Lit Reviews book, which is also about thinking about research questions. And these are to help you start to think about a research topic that you're going to explore throughout the remainder of the semester. You have an additional 2 things to watch or listen to, and that's a video and a TED Ed lesson that talk about critical thinking and sources of information. Your workshop for this week, which is not a discussion, it's a little bit different than what you're used to, asks you to propose a question. And so let me just explain what that means. So the workshop is really a chance for you and I to talk about what research questions you might be interested in. And so it's not a discussion in that you don't have to respond to your classmates' post, but it is open to everybody, because the process that someone else goes through to start narrowing in on a research topic might be useful to you in thinking about your own research topic. So I encourage you, in addition to posting your own and responding to the questions that I ask in there, to make sure that you read your classmates and sort of learn from the process they're going through. It is going to be really, really important for you to get a good grade on this workshop that you both post by Wednesday and then respond to the questions that I ask of you, because that back and forth process is really what this is designed to do. And if you find that you're not confident in where you're headed, and rather than doing it back and forth on Blackboard, you'd rather schedule a time to do WebEx or phone, that's totally fine. We can make that happen. And so you need to propose a question by Wednesday, or a topic, sorry, not a question, by Wednesday, and then I'll respond to you, and we'll sort of try to narrow that down a little bit, and that'll help prepare you for the assignment next week. There's an example that's already in Blackboard for you about homelessness, and so that might be, you might choose like sort of a social problem to focus on. You might also have a particular population you're interested in. You might have a question that revolves around youth in foster care. You might have a particular geographic area that you're really interested in. So you're really interested in what's going on in Bridgeport, Connecticut, or, Stockton, California. And so you've got some guidance there. I thought it might be helpful to give you another example, and this is a real life example. So I think I might have mentioned in my intro, so I have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, and last week I put my 5-year-old on the school bus for the first time, and so I've found myself suddenly thinking about school bus safety in a way that I don't think I ever really did before. And, sometimes as a researcher and a social worker, the topics that really grab our attention are ones that connect to our lives in some way. And so if the topic I was interested in for this particular assignment was school bus safety, I might respond to that question and say, the topic is school bus safety. And then that next section where it asks you for a paragraph around scope. I don't have these statistics memorized, but I took notes for myself. So I might say that there are 480,000 school buses on the road in the United States carrying 25 million kids, and it makes it actually the largest form of mass transit in the United States, which is a true fact that I got from the National School Bus Association. And if I was writing this in Blackboard, I would put APA style citations right there. And it's relatively safe as far as transit goes, which makes me feel good about my kindergartner. But we do know that an average of 6 kids die every year on school buses. And there's been some examples. If anybody's from New Jersey, there was a really bad school bus accident in New Jersey last year. So the research question I would really like to know is about an intervention, and which in this case would be seatbelts. So does adding seatbelts to school buses make school buses safer? And for me as a social worker and a policy practitioner, this is a social policy question that I want to know the answer to from the research literature, because then that's going to inform whether or not I go to my state legislature here in Connecticut or my school board in my town and ask them to add seatbelts to all of our buses. So hopefully that's helpful for you in thinking about sort of what the question and then the scope of it or the topic scope of it and then the question might look like. Like I said, you have an example in Blackboard. If it's helpful to have more examples, then shoot me an email and let me know, and I'll be happy to put that together for you. And I think you'll find the reading for this week helpful in putting this together. The Grinnell book really, in particular, asks you to think through sort of how the social work profession connects to the topics that you care about. For those of you who are working in social services, in a social service agency or human service agency, you probably will be interested in the things that your agency does. So how does your agency and the mission of your agency and the context of your agency affect the questions that we ask and the work we do? And the chapter also asks you to think about ethical and cultural considerations of your research, right? So that we make sure we're not like imposing a dominant worldview on other cultures or sort of running roughshod over different groups of people because we have sort of a preformed notion of how things should be done. And then the chapter also asks you to think about political and social considerations for research as well. So I'm not going to get into it in a ton of detail because I think it's pretty well laid out in the chapter, but if you've got questions, please don't hesitate to shoot them to me. So again, you've got 3 chapters of reading and review of chapter 1, if that's helpful for you. The quiz is going to be on the chapter 2 in the Grinnell book, and the quiz is due by the end of the week. If I was doing the work for this week in class, I might actually start with the reading in Grinnell and then take the quiz just so that you know how you did, and so then you have time to redo it, and then move on to the rest of the reading and the videos and drafting the research question. But it also depends on what your week looks like and what your time availability is. So I hope everyone's having a good week. I don't know if any of you have any Labor Day traditions, but in Connecticut, it's the weatherman used the word disgusting about the weather literally 10 times on the news this morning. So we are not going to go to we're not going to go to a fair or a festival or anything like that. We're going to stay inside in the air conditioning today. So I hope you have a great day. I hope you have a good week. And please don't hesitate to email me if you've got any questions or set up a time for a WebEx or a phone call. All right, take care. Bye-bye.